The college basketball season might be over, but the hoops are just getting started because the NBA playoffs are here, and we're going to talk about them in this episode of Sports Uncomplicated. So NBA, you've probably seen the letters, heard the letters, have seen the logo maybe. Well, it stands for the National Basketball Association. So basically, the most important professional basketball league here in the United States. So the most important, the top of the top, where all the pros want to aspire to and play at. So the NBA, it has 30 teams total. So there are 30 teams competing. Remember what I told you in the first episode? They're all competing for a title. That is the goal. This time, we're talking about professional athletes, so they get paid to play for a team. This is their job, basically, full-time job, right? They get paid a lot of money, by the way, to play here. So there are 30 teams total in the NBA, and they are divided in two conferences. So we have the East Conference and the West Conference. 30 teams divided by 2 in both conferences, so you have 15 on each. Different parts of the country, right? So we have here in Texas, we have 3 NBA teams. We have the Dallas Mavericks, we have the Houston Rockets, and we have the San Antonio Spurs. They all play for the West Conference. Meanwhile, some examples of East Conference teams, we have the Boston Celtics, the Atlanta Hawks, Miami Heat, teams like that. So remember, just in total, there are 30 teams, and then we have the East and West conferences. During the regular season, teams just play each other. Doesn't matter if they're in the West or Eastern Conference. So if you remember from the first episode, teams, they have a regular season where they hope to get enough wins to make it to the postseason where they will play for the title. Well, same thing here in the NBA. They play each other for 80. There are 82 games in a regular season, and depending on each individual team's record, then they will stand in a table in the standings. So whatever their position is will potentially qualify them for the postseason. You have 1 through 15 in the standings. You hope to be in at least the top 8 so you can make it to the postseason, which I will explain to you right now. So we just went over what the NBA is, which is the National Basketball Association. It's 2 conferences, East versus West, and then the goal of the regular season, which is for teams to win enough amount of games to make it to the postseason or NBA playoffs, which is the reason why you clicked on this video. So let's talk about them. So before 2021, it used to be the same format for pretty much the entire time. But then in 2022, the NBA officially introduced what's called a play-in tournament. So now what the playoff picture looks like, you have the 7 and 8 and 9 and 10th seed all competing for a spot in the playoffs, whereas before you would get 7 and 8 seeds going automatically into the playoffs. Well, now they have to take on 7 versus 8 and then 9 versus 10, and then they would have to play each other to get into the playoffs. So let's make that a little clearer. In the Eastern Conference, the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks, they were 7 and 8 in the table, in the standings. Well, now, whereas before they would have automatically had a spot in the playoffs, now in the play-in tournament system, the Magic and the Hawks will play against each other, and whoever wins, well, then they will move on to the playoffs. Whoever loses will have to play either the Bulls, who are number 9, or the Miami Heat, who are number 10. Now, the Bulls and the Heat will play against each other to be able to play either the Magic or the Hawks to get into the playoffs. So I know that's very confusing, and it took NBA fans a while to get used to, but it just adds 2 extra rounds for make it more interesting, make it more fun, so more teams have the chance to make it to the playoffs. We know seeds 7, 8, 9, and 10 will be playing in the play-in tournament, But what about the rest of the seeds, number 1 through 6? Well, they still automatically go to the playoffs. So if we take a look at the Western standings, we have at number 1 the OKC Thunder, at number 2 the Houston Rockets. Those two, they will have to wait to see how the play-in tournament unfolds to get their opponent for the first round of the playoffs. But how about seeds number 3 to 6? Well, they do know who their opponent is. We have at number 3 the LA Lakers. They will take on the Minnesota Timberwolves at 6. So that's how the playoffs work. You get 3 versus 6, and then 4 versus 5, which in this case would be the Denver Nuggets versus the LA Clippers at number 5. So those matchups are already set up for round 1. Meanwhile, number 1, which is the Thunder, and number 2, the Rockets, will have to see and wait how the play-in tournament works. So enough talk about playoffs and seedings and all these formats. Let's get to the fun stuff. Now let's do some pop culture comparisons to help you make better sense of the players to know, teams to look out for this season, some storylines. Let's start with the reigning champs, the Boston Celtics. So this is the team that won the NBA title last year. And they're still a really good team this year. So they're basically the team everyone wants to beat because they won it last year. They're still a threat. So if we were to compare that to pop culture, a great comparison would be Avatar, the movie. Now listen to this. Listen to why. So Avatar is still the highest grossing movie in box office history. So that makes them legendary, right? Every director out there, they want to beat Avatar with their movies, but they still haven't done so. If we compare it to the Celtics, they're the team to beat, and not only that, they had the most NBA titles in history. So they're a historic, legendary team. Everybody wants to beat them. Same like Avatar, every filmmaker wants to be Avatar. Here's some players you definitely have to know if you're starting to watch the NBA. If this is your first season watching, well, you definitely need to know these players. We start off with none other than LeBron James, and this is a name you've probably heard before, seen before, even if you've never watched an entire game of basketball, just because that's how great he is. He's still regarded as the face of the league, so this is the household name of the NBA, LeBron James. So a person that comes very similar to that in the music industry could be Beyonce, right? They both started their careers pretty much around the same time, early 2000s. Beyonce with Destiny's Child, right? So they were blowing up in that era. And to this date, they are still at the top, right? Beyonce is still winning all these awards. She's still going on tour. Everyone loves her. Everyone talks about her. It's a great comparison for you to understand, like, this is a legendary status type of a player that's marked generations, that has left an impact in their respective industries. So that's LeBron James. He plays for the LA Lakers. He's now at the LA Lakers. Now we have to talk about Steph Curry, the three-point machine. So you probably also heard this name before because he's had such a great impact outside the NBA. So he's also a very, very big household name. Steph Curry, he transformed basically the NBA. Is regarded as the greatest shooter in the league and possibly all time. So a good comparison to that, just because on when he really took off in his career and when he started in the league, which was the early 2010s, we can compare that to a Taylor Swift. Like Taylor Swift to the Beyonce that is LeBron James, right? They're still both playing in the league. Taylor Swift taking off in her career a little later than Beyonce, but they're both at the top, and people have their preference and opinions on who's the best. So Steph Curry, LeBron James, that is the two biggest names that you have to remember in the league. Steph Curry, he plays for the Golden State Warriors, number 30. Golden State Warriors, number 30. Lastly, here's the storyline of the season, the biggest storyline. So back in February, the Dallas Mavericks traded Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers. They're both teams that play in the Western Conference. Now, this was a huge trade because Luka Doncic, well, he's a young star. He's barely getting started and he's already so good. So this is a very young talent, very young prospect. And then he got traded for Anthony Davis, who is still a star in this league, but he's older and more injury prone. If we were to compare that to the film industry, a great example would be if you were a film director and you would trade Timothée Chalamet for Chris Pratt. Now, both really good actors, but of course, Timothée younger, still in his prime. People everywhere on social media still talk about him. Chris Pratt still making movies, but definitely not in his peak, right? Not in the same peak as Timothy. So for Mavericks fans, that was horrible for them to lose a young star. Like if they had just traded Timothy from their team and they got Chris Pratt instead. So you can see how that would make fans really, really mad. Now for the Lakers fans, they're happy because they're getting possibly one of the best talents in the NBA right now, but not for Mavericks fans because they're just got older and more injury prone. So just so you understand that, Luka Doncic is now in the Lakers, who are in the number 3, and they're automatically in the playoffs. But the Mavericks they barely made it to the play-in tournament and will have to play 2 rounds to possibly be able to play in the playoffs. Well, that's a wrap for the NBA playoffs. But if you still have any questions or just want to discuss the topic further, please feel free to reach me on my social media platforms. Until next time, with your Sports Uncomplicated, I'm Zoe Del Rosario. Now don't tell me if it didn't go in.